worried that you might be the cool kid, you wear the latest fashions on top of all the trends? Or have you ever worried you were too much in the mainstream, always so generic, more normal than your friends? Well, we've devised a test to put to rest your fears. There's no need to panic if you lend us your ears. Tonight you can't sleep easy after all that you've heard, 'cause if you like the show, then you're probably a nerd. Oh, Canon, it's Canon, it's all. Canon.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the It's Canon podcast. It is a new week, it's a new day, quite literally. As always, we are your hosts. I'm Boris, and somewhere on the northern side of the GTA is the one, the only, the Phil.
Hey everybody, how you doing? How are you doing, Boris?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Can't complain.
Welcome to the
new week.
Yeah, new week, start of a new week, start of a new routine for you. This is the It's Canon podcast, the only podcast where the intro theme is probably more popular than the actual talking. So, because that's the feedback that I always get is, hey, you guys have a great theme. It's like, well, what did you think of the rest of the show?
I didn't listen.
Exactly. My nephew even messaged me on the weekend saying he has nothing better to do but to listen to the podcast. And he's like, well, I have your theme on loop right now. I'm like, well, thanks, kiddo. Best feedback ever.
Yeah, man. Well, it's a good intro. Tell you.
Yep. You know it.
It's got the legs.
So this week, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about all things geek. It's going to be another geekathon. I know that this is a little bit of weird of a schedule, but you know, Phil and I right now are still working the kinks out in regards to our own schedules. Actually, okay, I'll be honest. I'm working out the kinks out on our schedule and trying to see what works best. So, you know, I do apologize for changing things up, changing people's routine, but, you know, here we are. We're trying to get as much content out there as humanly possible. And, you know, with a lot of episodes, I do know as a fact that some people are catching up, and I can see this as I look through the metrics of what people are listening to. So, you know, sometimes you're going to get this weird episode thrown in the middle, kind of like a filler after a brief few episodes. You need a filler episode, and that's exactly what this is on the It's Canon podcast. So we're going to talk about all things geek. We're going to come around and we're going to chat about a few topics that we've talked about in the past. And we're going to have a great time doing that. So Phil, before we get started, and I think this is a lot of people's favorite part of the episode, so that's why I'm going to put it up on top. You know exactly what I'm going to ask you. How's Animal Crossing going?
Oh, man. You know what? The game's a freaking mess. I don't know what the heck is going on now. It's just like spaghetti in a blender. It's just fucked up. But it's funny. You know, it's very grindy still. The stupid dog comes to my island every Sunday night and serenades me with a stupid song, and then he puts it in my pocket, and I'm never going to load it into anything in the game that can play it because it sounds like cats being stuck in a bag. It's just horrible. I'm accumulating money like crazy, and the game's actually quite boring. You know, you take away owning a home, and all of a sudden it's like retirement city. I'm like, oh, I'm just keeping up appearances. I moved my house. Introducing challenges to that thing. It's a struggle, man.
So basically,
Ghost calls me. Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah, that game. So Okay, before we jump into kind of, a week after initially playing that game, I do want to talk about that, but I need to touch on one thing about your Animal Crossing experience. So all I gather is that you're really not looking forward to retirement in like 2 years or so.
I don't think so. It's gonna be me with an axe hitting a rock. Just like, is there iron in here? Am I gonna get a gold nugget? I don't know.
Yeah,
like that's what retirement looks like. So maybe I won't be staying on that schedule,
exactly. Well, for all that we know, we're going to be podcasting 5 days a week then.
Yeah, and I'll be playing, Animal Crossing still probably too. So.
Exactly. All right, so we're sticking with video games right now and kind of what we've done throughout the week. So Ghost of Tsushima. So last week we kind of gave our first thoughts, our original intentions, our original thoughts, what we thought of the game. We only played it a few hours, so after a week, Phil, how are you liking the game?
I'm enjoying it. You know what? I log in each night and I always end up thinking I'm just going to do this one little thing. And then I end up doing 2 or 3 things.
Yeah.
And the game's really good at roping you into that, right?
Yep.
And it's just been MLS's back tournament has just been my big interrupter now.
Yeah.
And now that our team is out, I'm like, I'll probably pay attention to some of the games, but largely Ghost has me very compelled. And the only reason why I stopped, just so the audience knows, the only reason why I took down my Last of Us 2 pace is just because it was getting too emotional for me. It was a very, very challenging story, and not in a negative way, just in an emotional way. And I find that just makes it so I can't sleep at night with all those zombie clacker things and all that. So.
Yeah, because you were in a really weird sleep schedule for like a week or 2 after that game came out.
Yeah, because of that midnight release, and I knew I had some time in front of me.
Yeah.
So I got into a bad schedule, and right now I'm pretty much back to normal.
Good.
So I'm surprised that my body just kind of rebounded that way, but we'll see what happens.
And just so our listeners know, and so that you know, I know as a fact that the last achievement you got in that game was on June 30th in the evening.
Yeah.
Because that's what I do, is I stalk your playing habits so that we can talk about it, and I know exactly what you're playing, so I can bring random stuff up like this at any given time during the game, or during the podcast.
I'm going to say this, though, because I got into a bit of Boris, you might know this, you might not. Okay, I've got a pretty high, not super high, but comparatively to almost anyone on my friends list on Xbox, I pretty much have a really high achievement
in
score.
Xbox, yes.
Yeah, because I've been, they just told me I've been on it for 17 years, right? So I'm like, okay, crap. I feel really old now. So anyhow, what happened was a friend of mine and I were playing Forza Horizon 4, which is kind of an indulgence on the side. I do enjoy it. And my friend's been kiting me along with these weekly challenges and helping me out with some codes and stuff that he's getting off the internet. And anyhow, he started getting a little bit boisterous because his achievement score, because they break it down by the month now. So he was ahead and he started rubbing it in. And then we did a little Forza-thon and then I was ahead and then he was getting disgruntled.
Yeah.
So he challenged me and he said, I'm going to bring it on. I'm going to play Mafia 3. I'm going to ace the game and all that. So naturally, what did I do? I went out and I looked up games that are easy to get 1,000 achievement points on in Xbox Game Pass. So I downloaded 2 or 3 of those and now I just slapped them down with 1,000 gamer points just to keep them firmly in second. And that kind of distracts me sometimes.
That is, yeah. You send me screenshots of where you are point wise to your relative to your friends. It's funny.
I talked with him last week, and I'm like, "Do you see the score?" And he's like, "We're not going to talk about that this week." So I'm like, "Okay, I know where we stand." I have 1 July.
Yeah, that's actually hilarious. So, as we're talking video games, something came to mind, and it's something that's actually been bothering me for the weekend, and that's an article that came up. And all I want to say is Joe Rogan could go fuck himself. with all his bullshit about, hey, video game this and video game that, waste your time this, waste your time that, waste your time that. And I've been hearing this thing more and more and more and more. And yes, you know, watching MMA, what does that make you? You know, like, who do you think you are?
How about having a podcast?
Having a podcast, you know, you literally, whatever, you know, it's this, it always gets to me when people start judging other people's hobbies. You know, whether that hobby contributes to the overall achievement and overall humanity or not, it doesn't fucking matter. A hobby is a hobby is a hobby. It's how you want to spend your time. It's how you want to live your life. If you feel that you need that downtime to escape, you do that. If you feel that you need to be productive in your downtime and to do your hobbies, then you do that. But never ever put down anyone's hobbies in any shape or form, because we don't know what anyone's going through. So for someone to just flat out say that something is a waste of time because of XYZ, regardless of what those reasons are, it's just bullshit, and you have no balls, and you can go fuck yourself.
I just find that, I tripped across these sentiments today or yesterday, and I saw a little clip on YouTube about it. And it's remarkably insensitive, but it's meant to stir the pot and get a reaction.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Exactly what Joe Rogan is about at times. And it's his prerogative. It's his show. He can do and say as he pleases, but I just thought it was rather insensitive and just a provoking comment in order to get a reaction from gamers, which I'm not going to indulge him with beyond making the comment that I think it's a fun pastime.
Yep.
The same as watching a movie. I will stand behind my comments. I will stand behind comments that I've read in the industry that it is a way more immersive experience than watching a movie.
Yep.
You get to see the story from whatever the storyteller wants you to do, like from the protagonist's eyes, from the enemy's eyes, whatever it is. You get to indulge yourself in that story. You get to engage. You also, learn hand-eye coordination, which I don't think is much of a problem in today's society. But there are benefits, there are enrichments to your mind, there are a lot of different things that emerge from the experience of playing video games. So it's too bad Joe Rogan feels that way. But the one that made me laugh today was just seeing somebody clap back at him on Twitter, saying, "So it's a waste of time, just like listening to your podcasts, which you're not bettering humanity, you're not doing anything, you're just listening to Joe Rogan prattle on about stuff."
I figured it out.
Okay.
I figured out where this comment came from, and it's as you were talking, and that's a thing. The only reason I brought it up was because, I've heard these comments since I was a kid. How I spend my time with all this geek stuff and reading comic books and, playing video games and things like that, and how much of a waste of time it is. But you know what? It kept me off the streets. It kept me focused. It kept me, thinking about other stuff as opposed to other morons. So that's why I brought it up. And as you were talking, Phil, I quickly did a search on the Google machine.
Google.
And here's something interesting reported just 3 days ago. Joe Rogan won't be the commentator on new EA Sports UFC 4 video game. There you go.
We found our smoking gun.
There you go. I knew it. I knew that there was a reason, because it's a very random comment for him to make, outside of, like, as you said, just to irritate people and have people talk about him like we are right now. There must be an actual reason. And then I just thought about, like, a weird internet feud that was happening last week in the world of WWE, and one of the people who was featured on the cover art made this comment about how they get paid 6 figures just for being on the cover of that year's video game. Then I figured Joe Rogan, at the end of the day, only cares about Joe Rogan and his bank account, so there must be a reason why he's saying something, and boom, there you go.
Follow the money.
That's exactly it.
The same type of thing happened with Mark Maron, like last year or year before. He crapped all over Marvel fans, DC fans, saying that the movies were a plague, that there was no point in going to the theater because those movies were choking out quality movies. And to a large degree, he has a point. I don't necessarily agree with it, but he clapped it out at fans, and then he comes out and he was in The Joker. which
Yep.
and then the controversy swirled even more. And I think it was all to his benefit. At that point in time, I don't want to besmirch the guy. I know he's going through a lot right now, and he's a person that I look up to a lot. But, I just thought it was very Trump-esque.
Yeah.
In the approach, like that whole conspiracy. I'm going to make a splash so people talk about it, and then follow it up with, now I'm in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just think it was a convenient way to get into the conversation.
That's exactly it. And I was just quickly gazing through the article again as you were talking, and apparently Joe Rogan on his podcast talks about how much and he hates doing the voiceovers and this and that. So EA basically said, with all your complaining, well, you don't have to come in this year, so peace. So there you have it. Joe Rogan won't be the commentator on the new UFC video game, and then Joe Rogan blasts video games. Go figure.
Yeah, and you know what? Recording those things does suck.
Oh, 100%.
It's a lot of repetition, word isolation. It's not a fun thing, but if he's getting paid, I guess maybe it's all the big bucks from Spotify now.
Yeah, that's the thing. They clearly...
he doesn't need to scrounge around and do the voiceover anymore.
No. Let's see what bullshit we're gonna come up with and talk about when we sign a $100 million contract with Spotify.
Yeah, I know, right?
The fuck are we doing?
Apparently not the right thing, but good for Joe. I've watched his show. He's not necessarily one of the people that I identify with, but I do appreciate. I really like the episodes that he brings on the alien people and stuff like that. I get into that sometimes because I do like his approach on some of that stuff.
Yeah, if you like listening to stuff like that, you know what podcast you should listen to. You should listen to the Chris Jericho podcast, the wrestler Chris Jericho. He has obviously wrestlers come on and talk about their experiences and a lot of background stuff. And lately it's a lot of WWE bashing. But anytime he brings in conspiracy people, or my favorite is the flat earthers. Oh man, those episodes are just gold. And it's like really good. And he does a great job of not disparaging them. He like kind of, I think he can find something in common with them and the way that he thinks, and he has a great conversation with them. It's very different than, listening to Coast to Coast or something like that, where they're just egging you on to see and get those crazy comments and those crazy people. So yeah, and that's, I used to love as a kid listening to Coast, but when it was Art Bell, but when it changed to George Norrie, he just became, he turned it into like a sideshow. Is, can we get the craziest person on the line, and let me bring out the crazy in them. It's no investigative journalism anymore, anything like that. It's just like, whatever, bring out the crazies.
Yeah. And that, I think that society in general and entertainment in general just is getting to that level where it's extreme or nothing. And there's not much investigative stuff going on at all in most journalism, which is where I think a lot of the whole attitude comes from towards journalism right now. And it's unfortunate. It just seems like a lot of people are hired for their camera friendliness versus, maybe their investigative capabilities. But that's a comment that, whatever, it's neither here nor there, not to take away from anybody who's in that field. It's just the way it's presented. Maybe it's the way it's written, but it just looks like there's a lot of manipulation going on.
It's also manipulation, but if you take a look at, our attention spans, what are you going to read? Are you going to read a huge report about something so in-depth that actually matters in the grand scheme of the world, or are you going to read a meme or an infograph where you can get all the info that you need? That right there is kind of, how we dissect information, and media companies are just adapting to that, and we're losing the art of actual journalism through this. Like or people will just call bullshit on it right away. So, if you're constantly being disparaged in your job, at some point you're not going to want to go out and do that, and it's just, that's kind of where we are.
And I think part of that too, honestly, I try to read the full articles on stuff. I try to be a little educated, because I feel guilty whenever I get information from a meme or something like that. And part of the problem is that you open it up, let's say on your phone, and then you get hit with a billion ads, and like to get the article, you have to try and sort through the advertisements and the targeted crap. And then you just end up giving up on it. If the information isn't easy to obtain or read, I don't mind an occasional ad in the story, but some of the stuff is just garbage as far as trying to like absorb it. You can't do it.
Exactly. And I think this kind of goes in hand with something that I wanted to bring up in a little bit, and this is a perfect segue, and it's kind of how the world is changing. Before, we used to always, consume and just think of things as one product, whether it be a newspaper, whether it be a video game, whether it be a phone. It used to be one product, and all the attention would go into that one product, and the newest iteration would be an upgrade of the older iteration. But, now it's because everything is looked at through stock market and analysts. Analysts are never happy. The public is never happy. You have to constantly be changing and innovating. So that's one of the reasons why we see a new iPhone every year. It's, yes, they make a lot of money, but it's also the pressure from the public. It's and I can speak from coming from the especially the mobile world. At the end of the day, you do not make a lot of money through hardware or that one product anymore.
Yeah.
It's all about...
Being that way, you could see it in video games, right?
And that's exactly where we're going. So it's all about services. It's all about services. It's all about subscription. It's all about, the monthly recurring revenue for companies, as opposed to that one-time sale of something. Having the monthly recurring revenue just looks better in your books, which looks better to the public. And when I mean public, I mean the stock public, the analysts, the investors, and those types of people, not us, Phil, Boris, public. So it's all about
the
that.
money public.
Exactly, the money public. So it's about how can we guarantee profits for 12 months at a time. And obviously, there's a lot of unknowns by releasing one product. So you have to kind of think outside of the regular box. And I hate saying that, but it's true. So you have services, you have subscriptions. It's why Netflix's stock price jumps up and down so much. It's why now you're seeing even the way that Apple and and I guess BlackBerry, when they were around, they're still around, but you know what I mean, when they were lead in the consumer space, it was all about how can we get people to subscribe to something. And now, and this is where the segue is going to happen, now we're seeing it in the video game domain. So for the past decade and a half, we've seen these subscription services start very basic. Online access. Pay us $4 or $5 a month, $60 a year, and you'll have access to our server so that you can play video games online on that system, yada, yada, yada. And they make a shit ton of money that way because they know, and they can not only get that money from you because you might forget about it or whatever, but at the end of the day, they can then extrapolate that information, and they know how much money is going to come in at the end of the day. So, now we're seeing with the new generation of gaming consoles and gaming in general, subscription services is super important. On the PlayStation side, obviously you have PlayStation Plus, with their subscription services for the online games, online gaming, and then you get, your incentives with the free games and whatnot. And check your PSN mail. You might get $10 from Sony. So, and then, they came with PS Now. PS Now is their cloud gaming service where you can play, it's essentially... The reason why backwards compatibility doesn't come with systems anymore is because they figured they're going to turn this into a service, turn it into profit. Monthly recurring revenue is the most important thing for a company right now. So, looking at the new generation of gaming, there's a lot of speculation about how much the actual PlayStation 5 console is going to cost Sony to produce. And that might, lead to a profit. Or they, like in PlayStation 2, 3, whatever it was, will, take a hit per product.
3.
I knew that. I just wanted to be sure. So, the reality of the situation is that necessarily the hardware does not bring in the money. It's all about services and subscription. Come Microsoft and enter Microsoft and enter last week's, big announcements about games and whatnot. We will talk a little bit about kind of our thoughts, but right off the bat, at the end of the day, clearly Microsoft is leaning towards this new model of monthly recurring revenue, as they for sure want to put a lot of emphasis and focus on cross-platform gaming, and more importantly, their Game Pass service, because they think that your games can be and should be playable and played on essentially any console. It doesn't matter. So Xbox Series X games no longer defined by technology, says Microsoft.
However, they walked some of this back. They said that, first of all, if it's playing on the Xbox Series X, it's going to be a much better experience. You're going to get 4K at 60 frames per second. So there's that. And secondly, they said that not all developers are participating in this strategy. So the Microsoft ones are. So you're going to be able to play Halo Infinite on your Xbox One S. You're going to be able to do certain things on it, but other developers are not necessarily putting the older generation of consoles ahead of the other ones. So they're kind of in a funny spot now, because I know it broke out that everything's backwards compatible for the next 2 to 3 years, because there was this statement made where they said, well, you don't need to go out and buy our Xbox. You can just play it on any platform, which made it look like Xbox is giving up on the sales generation already. Like not trying to win the war. But it is an interesting thing what they're doing. I subscribe to Xbox, the Game Pass, and I love it. Like, honestly, I'm not, as the listeners know, and I'm not a huge Xbox fan, but I haven't bought an Xbox game in probably Forza 4, Horizon 4. I haven't bought an Xbox game beyond that because of Game Pass.
So for our listeners
awesome.
who don't know how the service works, Phil, you have it. Can you explain it? Like, in regards to new games, new releases, how long until they appear on Game Pass and things like that? Talk about the service, talk about the experience, talk about the price points, talk about the connection, how good of a connection you need to have, because that's something I do want to bring up in a little bit. So go ahead.
I would recommend that you have an unlimited download, very much so. But as far as any Microsoft title, basically you subscribe to this thing. You basically say, you're already, by subscribing to it, you automatically get escalated to a gold member if you take the ultimate bundle. And depending on the bundle that you choose, you can also get PC gaming. And what that entitles you to, especially on the console, is day one releases by Microsoft companies. So like Gears 5, boom, straight to Xbox Game Pass. Forza 4, Horizon 4, boom, right to Game Pass. And then basically other titles sequence out in a staggered way depending on how the developer wants to approach it. So Ubisoft might not be too eager right now. I notice there's not a lot of titles by them on it, but they just released Fallout 76 on it. There's a few titles that trickle through. The Outer Worlds was day one. So different studios that might be looking to make a splash into the market, or I guess Microsoft incentivizes them. The biggest thing is that you have to download the full game. You're not streaming it through xCloud. However, in September, they are bringing xCloud to the service. So that'll be the debut of that, which completely changes a lot of stuff too. I have questions about the fact that would my Xbox One S be able to, if my internet connection was good enough, could I play Xbox Halo Infinite on their servers through the streaming? There's some questions to be asked there, which may be where Microsoft are crouching down a little bit now and just saying, don't worry, it's all going to work out. So there's a little bit of a read in there, but it's a pretty good service. It's a bit dear. They'll give you the first month for $1, anything to get you in the door, and then it's about $16.99 a month. It's not cheap at any rate, but it's on par with my Netflix 4K.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I really can't complain with the amount, the variety of titles, and it's really nice too because you can download a game that you would never touch, play it, and then find out either you really like it or that you hate it. You know, like there's Ori and all the Ori games, the two of them, stuff like that you might just want to be like, well, that's a really good presentation. It's a side scroller, though I'm not really into it, but it is good, you know, and you get to experience that. It really widens the breadth of your experience.
Right. Now, in regards, so do you download the game? Is it a streaming service?
Yep. You download it.
You download them.
So, Fallout 76 was like 70 gig. That's why I say unlimited internet. Just set it up and then leave your Xbox, because you just make sure that you have downloads in the background on. And you can turn your Xbox off at night and it will just download the game in the background. When you go back to your Xbox, it comes up and it says that you downloaded the game. You're ready to go. Now, this new streaming stuff coming out in September, I have no clue.
Yeah.
It's like Xbox Stadia. However, I will say this, the PlayStation streaming backwards compatible thing that uses Xbox xCloud. That was their test bed, and Sony are paying them.
Yep, exactly.
So there's a big relationship that we don't necessarily see as gamers, and that's why it's silly to be pro Xbox or pro PS5, like a fanboy level. It's just a preference. I like those games. I want to play those games. I'm going to buy a PS5.
Yeah, what a lot of people don't realize is that the 2 or 3, depending on how you see the world, the console gamers, the console companies, they see it as console gaming versus PC gaming, not, PlayStation versus Xbox. So they are fighting the likes of Steam, and things like that, and services
Epic.
like that, and Epic. Yeah, So that's where the focus is and where the focus should be. But going back to the whole technology, being a hindrance or not being the focus right now, and I think you mentioned it, but I do want to repeat this, that Xbox did go back a little bit, but they've been saying this. But obviously, the journalists they're not picking up on certain things, so that's why they're constantly repeating themselves. And one of the things that they've had to say many times is that, to get the true experience of the video game, you're going to need the latest generation console. So a lot of people were saying, hey, Xbox doesn't care about this generation. That's incorrect. All they're trying to do is just open up the world a little bit more through their services, through their subscriptions. And in a sense, they're thinking that if you're playing, Halo Infinite on a older Xbox model or on your PC, it might entice you to actually go out and buy a new console. That's the way that they're thinking about it.
It's a pretty big change or shift in how you think about gaming and console gaming, and it's good. For the gamers, it's good. Like, this competition is good. This idea, I think I'm warming up more and more to it. The only feedback that I have as a fan watching last week's event is I was a little bit let down by the variety, I guess. It just seems like there's a lot more promise in the first-party titles and a lot more polish that was shown on the PlayStation stuff versus the Xbox stuff. But I know the Xbox is going to be more than capable. I know that the developers will start coming through with miracles, or, purchases go through and development cycles bring forth products that are exciting. I was let down by Halo Infinite, but maybe that's a design choice by them. That's been the big thing on the internet now, where it's not meant to be super realistic and whatnot. It's a design choice to be retro-y graphics.
I never thought Halo was ever supposed to be a fully realistic shooter. Look at how, in terms of comparing a Halo, versus a Modern Warfare or Call of Duty game, Halo, you feel like you're playing an arcade game, as opposed to Call of Duty, where it feels like you're playing more of a simulator type game. And I think with the choices in art and the choices in coloring and textures and things like that, it feels more and more like an arcade game.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's just easy to get caught up in the hype on the internet, right? When 100%. You see Last of Us 2 and you see Joel with the beard and stuff like that, and then you juxtaposition it with the dude driving the spaceship for Master Chief, and you go, one guy looks like he's made out of Play-Doh, and it ain't Joel.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it just was. It's a little bit jarring.
Also, though, what later came out in those side-by-side comparisons is that the Xbox footage wasn't even captured on a latest gen Xbox console. So, it's a lot of questionable decisions being made by Microsoft and what they're demoing and the information that's coming out there. But it's obvious that they're really kind of positioning themselves in this brave new world of subscriptions and monthly recurring revenue. And if that's the direction they want to go, the power to them. It is the future. Again, me being in technology will tell you that is what every company strives for, especially public companies, because it's innovation. And if you're not innovating, 5-6 times a year in regards to big announcements, your stock folk are going to start questioning you. And that's when analysts start degrading your position. And then you get yourself into what I like to call the Blackbird position, where you become desperate and then you start making stupid decisions, yada, yada, yada. But we're not going to go into that discussion today.
I'll just say this for people. You know what? If you're not sure, wait until it comes out and get some reviews. All right? See what you're buying. If you don't care about that, then go out and grab it day one. If I feel comfortable at night sitting there thinking my PlayStation 5 is going to be a worthwhile purchase for me, and I look forward to getting my Xbox Series X out at some point too. But, wait for the reviews, check stuff out. Look at how things go. It's a extremely advantageous position by Xbox to position themselves this way. And as well with that Game Pass, if you want to try it out, try it for the $1 a month and then cancel it. I did that a couple times. And then the games are identified. They have a little Game Pass logo in the corner. Those just gray out and they say, you can't play these, delete them, do whatever. So it's an easy thing to activate and deactivate. But I think I heard that Xbox no longer offer 12-month subscriptions to Gold. So they're actively going to be really pushing people into the Game Pass thing in the next few months.
Yep.
Good for them. Check it out if you're interested. If not, hey, all good by me.
Last week, we were talking about the number of PlayStations being sold at release time. And one of the things that I was talking about was in regards to having limits. And it's just hilarious that literally right after we recorded this, there was a lot of speculation through source code on the internet pages, unlive pages, not live pages, dark pages right now, that Sony is going to be limiting sales of their PlayStation 5 console to one per family, one per household.
Yeah, it's funny that we brought that up, right? It's just hilarious that they come up with this one per household, but it's going to expand soon. Like we were discussing those from what I've seen or heard on different sources on this thing. Not that I have any personal sources about it, but it just seems like the production schedule got pushed ahead so that they have a certain amount, like at least half of what they anticipate, 5 million units for, a mid-September type of time frame. And then they're looking at blitzing the rest of the market, markets and whatnot, again with another 5 million, because the Christmas rush is one of those where people come to it and the kids at home. I understand this. I've seen this in EB Games or GameSpot all the time, where people just come in and they go, my kid wants PlayStation 5. What is that? And then the guy's just they're completely blindly buying this thing. And if they don't have them in stock, they've screwed themselves with that customer. And goodness knows that franchise is really battling for eyeballs and foot traffic. So they're going to sit there and go, yeah, we've got, a mountain of them in back here, and they're only X hundreds of dollars. And those people will gladly hand over the money and make their kid really happy come Christmas Day or whatever holiday it is, that they're buying it for. So I think that Sony's just looking to make sure that they're hedging all bets and making sure that everybody who wants to get one can get one. And it's hopefully it's a way to cut out some of these bot buys and these different things that basically try to short the market on fans who actually want the product. Yeah. Right? Like we saw it with the coronavirus and the PlayStation, the Nintendo Switch. that apparently bot buying and stuff like that, trying to short it out so it drives the value up, and then they resell it on a secondary market, and people end up paying a lot of money for something that they shouldn't have. So it kind of sucks.
Yeah,
but I commend Sony in this respect, and hopefully, I can only hope that Microsoft have the same type of problem, and need to create more for the Christmas rush and get these consoles in the hands of fans.
Yeah. So, one of the things that you and I had talked about offline that we might as well have this conversation this week, and that's in regards to release dates. There's a lot of speculation to keep saying holiday 2020 and things like that. So let's try to speculate a little bit in regards to what that actually means. So I'm under the impression that it's going to happen 1 week or two, like for PlayStation 5, 1 week or 2 weeks before Thanksgiving USA. So that would be, early to mid-November for release. And I'm thinking that by mid-August, September, we're going to be seeing the pre-sale page go live on all platforms.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. It's the smart money play. Maybe Sony releases a little bit early. I think we're watching a big game of chicken, even though they don't, either side doesn't want to admit it. There's a big game of chicken on the price point on the release date. I think that, assuming that information about mid-September first shipment fulfillment, I think that, that would be, it's a possibility. I think it's a contingency. But I think that the planning, the smart planning would be trying to get into that magical space of exactly what you're talking about, early November, late October, the earliest, but mid-November, and trying to hit that Thanksgiving, Black Friday shopping holiday thing. Goodness knows what it's going to look like with COVID, but
that's exactly it. That's exactly it. There's been some, so for example, Walmart already says that they're not going to be open Thanksgiving night, probably might not open early for Black Friday. So I think we're going to be seeing a very different type of Black Friday this year, and I think that's actually going to make some changes in regards to these systems and when they're coming out. I also think that what they want to do is they want to get us, gamers like us out of the way. People who are day oneers, get us done. We're going to be happy, whatever. But they, as you said, stores like GameStop are for sure putting pressure on Sony and Microsoft, the Xbox division, to have a bunch of systems ready for actual Christmas shopping.
Yeah, they have to. That's their gameplay. I would even, just to go with what I'm hearing, there's a possibility that Sony themselves will be selling the PlayStation 5 directly to fans, right? So we'd be able to order one on the PlayStation Store.
Yep.
And it would just get delivered to us, right? It's like, I don't know, it'd be even smart for them to split the payments, where it's like, okay, as of August or September, you give us $100 a month, and then the last payment's going to be $200 or $200 up front, and then $100, and then you're going to have day one, that thing's going to be ready to go for you. Like, we're going to ship it. We're going to finance it for you to make it more affordable in these COVID times. That type of thing. I can see it being a really smart play because then you're opening up the possibility if Microsoft does something competitive with that if you're fortunate enough to have enough disposable cash, you could probably get both consoles pretty easily for, this year, for the holidays, whatever it is your little heart desires. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it for sure is going to be interesting, and I think that this entire holiday season, analysts, spectators, people are all going to keep a very close eye on what these companies are doing, and not only video game companies, bigger picture type things, like with the lack of disposable cash that a lot of people have this year. It'll be very interesting to kind of see how the holiday season goes and what type of sales we're going to see for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and things like that as we, kick off the holiday season around Thanksgiving. So we'll see. But, it'll be cool and interesting to kind of, be able to chat about it this time around.
Yeah. And you know what, people, just so everybody can calibrate their expectations, there's not going to be door crasher sales on these, or if there are, shame on whoever tries that. But these products are going to be high priced for this first year. There's not going to be any deals where it's like, oh, the PlayStation Slim, that type of thing, where you're getting these different products at drastically lower price points. You have to remember the life cycle of that PS4 and Xbox was like 7 years. So it only gets cheaper, and those that are going to be first in the door are going to get hit hard with an admission fee.
Yep.
So, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, whatever shopping holiday, Boxing Day here in Canada, even though I think we do Black Friday now, all that stuff, you're not going to score a great deal. In my opinion, the best you're going to do is like $30 to $50 off of the full retail at best. It's going to be on accessories and stuff like that, where, again, everybody milks the customer, and rightfully so, I guess. Somebody's got to make money somewhere.
Yep. So that is our chat about video games. I think it is time to move on, unless you have any final thoughts before we do, Phil.
Bring it on. Get the price war out. I want to see the wrestlers hit the mat, so to speak, and start getting this price duel on the go, because as a customer, I'm just getting tired of the
speculation,
the dog and pony show of, oh, look at our exclusives. Oh no, look at our exclusives. It's just getting tired now.
Hey, it gives us something to talk about on this show, but as a fan, it does get a little irritating because I just want to know. But like I said, little by little news, we have more topics to talk about, and I know that sometimes it sounds like we're repeating ourselves in regards to talking about the same subjects, but that's the big stuff right now. I was I was actually a little nervous bringing the show back in the middle of COVID, because I was thinking, what the hell were we going to be talking about? And here we are, constantly pushing stuff, forward or back, and rejigging the entire schedule, because there's so much to talk about every week. And yes, like I mentioned, I do know that we are repeating ourselves, generally speaking, in regards to talking about the same things. But these things, they update themselves throughout the week, and I feel that our listeners want to know and should know the latest news. So moving on to movies, I think the big news is in regards to something that we did talk about in the past show and the past few shows. That's in regards to dank and moist theaters. Exactly. I just wanted to say, it's funny because I said that I was just staring right at you in regard, your video chat there. So dank and moist theaters. So, we have Tenet, who was supposed to be released July 17th, July 20th this past week. That didn't happen. So now we are looking at a interesting release, because Chris Nolan is hell-bent on having this go on demand. He wants a theatrical release because that is best for his business. So what we are seeing right now is, in the United States of America, we are seeing a post-Labor Day release in theaters. However, Canada and international markets are going to get it on August 26th. And in Canada, earlier today, Cineplex announced that the film Tenet is going to open Thursday, August 27th.
Sweet. Well, for those people willing to take the risk, good luck. This is what I found out, all right? I know that we ripped on AMC and this bloody Trolls 2 thing, which I can't believe we're still talking about in that not so good way, but I know we ripped on them, and rightfully so for our perspective, but apparently there is like massive penalties in the movie universe about going straight to video and skipping the theatrical release, which is really at the core of the violation of the contract for the movie. Because I guess theaters pay a lot of money for all that crap we see in them, all the cardboard cutouts or whatever to promote the movie, or there's some arrangement in the industry, right? Like that is way deeper than I dare venture go, or that's brought to the light of plebes like me. However, there's a lot of money and a lot of business going on there. So these guys all get a little bit rightfully pissed, and I think that's what's keeping Tenet to try and stick to, like, not only Christopher Nolan wants to do the artistic thing, I think all the people backing him want to make sure that they don't get into this pissing match with the theaters, because I think the theaters are getting to the point now where they're going to need to be financially bailed out by governments or whatever. It's not a good scene.
Yeah.
You know?
So let's, I think that's the perspective I want to take right now. We always looked at this as a consumer, people who go to, I think you and I tend to go to the theater quite often. Generally speaking, we consume a lot of media, obviously, for the show, but in general, we do a lot of things like that. So, we have our own perspective about stuff, generally speaking, but, let's take a look at this from a Cineplex point of view, an AMC point of view. You are correct that there are a lot of, of those contractual obligations that the studios have with these theaters. A lot of marketing money, a lot of, programs and a lot of things like that are promoted in order to get a movie to theater first. There's a lot of money invested in there. So that's why obviously it's super important for that to happen. Now, so you have your investment as an AMC and a Cineplex to think about. Now, if you think about the situation that the world is in, where you've now been closed since mid-March, making $0. Cineplex has been lucky that they have a video-on-demand service here. And I don't think it's, saving the company per se, but at least it's bringing in something. But
hey, I can order on my Skip the Dishes, I can order popcorn and a hot dog from my Cineplex.
Yeah. Exactly. But, I
Can you hand me a $15 popcorn, please?
I know, right? Hey, but there are people who absolutely love that shit and will pay the money for it.
The butter on it. Yeah. Fair
so, from a Cineplex point of view, they're making $0 essentially, or not zero, but close to zero. They're not making as much as they usually do, that's for damn sure. So they obviously want to protect their investments as much as humanly possible, I should say. Now, when theaters eventually do open, they know that their operational costs are going to go up with, actually cleaning these theaters as opposed to whatever they were doing before. So, they know that the best way to get, and I love how you're laughing, they know that the best way to get people back to the theater is to show the movies that people actually want to see. So if people have the option to see these movies on demand at home, they're not going to go to the theater to watch it, regardless of, whatever the artsy-fartsy people want to say. That's just you're going to get less people giving you their money out of their own pocket to watch a movie in a theater. So they're just, again, trying to protect their investment in the grand scheme of things. So movies like Wonder Woman, Tenet, Bill and Ted, Black Widow, things like that.
Bill and Ted are going straight to video.
Well, I was going to say Bill and Ted is an exception. But, overall, these movies, these are the summer blockbusters. And 2020 was going to be a hell of a year for summer. But, because of COVID, things have changed. So these companies like AMC and Cineplex are really needing these movies to come out at the right time so that they can drive people right back into the movie theater and hopefully recover some of the money that they lost. That's the strategy, and that's the putting on a hat from their point of view and their perspective. I can see why they want it to go down this way and why they're really pushing the studios to make changes. And generally speaking, the studios have obliged. A lot of releases have been postponed. For example, Black Widow has been pushed out of the Marvel Disney release lineup. Mulan has been permanently removed from their lineup. There are a lot of movies that have been pushed back with no release date right now because they are waiting to see what's happening, with quarantine rules and social gatherings and social distancing rules, and when can we get people back to the theater so that we can reschedule and, put in invest in advertising dollars at the right time so that, it can help everyone out. Because at the end of the day, as much as a movie might make on demand, I'm sure that they will still always be making more if they were to be theatrical releases.
But here's the thing, all right? Number one, what happens if AMC, Cineplex, all these things die? Like they don't survive this pandemic financially. Then those contracts get divided up. And then the companies can do whatever the hell they want because the industry is just ravaged, right?
Yep.
So that's one long play that I can see them kind of putting in the corner on this. If they survive, then we can play nice with them. But this staggering worldwide stuff, all right, like Tenet being released in different parts of the world at different times, sucked for fandom. Because now there's going to be spoilers all over the internet for people. So they already know what they're going to be walking into, which means that if the movie's kind of shit, it's going to suffer even more at the box office when it hits in, not that I think it's going to be, but I'm just saying. I think that the right thing, I know Christopher Nolan, I know all these artists want to have their film seen in the right light and the right cinematic experience, but by goodness, like, come on, can we just start smartening up? This is like Major League Baseball choosing to play outside of a bubble right now. It's just putting lives at risk. Right? You're putting players at risk. You're putting people at risk to go to the theater as long as this pandemic is out of control as far as the numbers suggest. And I don't want to get into a deep discussion about that aspect of it, but it just, to the rest of the world, stuff looks like it's going crazy in the States as far as these numbers. And when you talk about putting 40, 50, 200, whatever amount of people in a small, dark, moist, dank box, and watching a movie and then watching numbers escalate even more potentially, right? Because now at least they're starting to talk about wearing masks in a lot of places, which isn't the be all and end all. It's not going to guarantee that you don't catch this virus. So I just think that at some point there has to be some integrity, right? And either you do what Disney's doing and just saying, no, we're shelving it. We're Black Widow, bah, no way. And you know what? That has ramifications for all the other Marvel movies. We're pushing them all down the line. We're pushing them all to another year, whatever. Okay, that's one approach because you're hedging your bets. But this whole idea that it's about art, to me, it isn't. It's about money. It's not about sensibility.
Exactly. Thank you for saying that. And let's take a look at Major League Baseball. 5 days in, you're already seeing massive cancellations. Earlier today, Miami Marlins announced that at least 14 people and 11 players specifically have tested positive for COVID-19, and they right now are stuck wherever they were playing. Philadelphia. Yep. So there you go. 5 days. It's 5 days.
How can you have like major league players going into airports across America from hotspots into non-hotspots or equally hotspots, touching common surfaces, spreading the disease? Whereas you look at what NHL are doing, you look at what the NBA are doing in a hotspot, you look at what the MLS is doing in a hotspot, and they're creating these bubbles and they're making the players sequester themselves. I think the NHL said something like they've administered 4,200 or 4,800 tests so far on the players.
Yep. Here's the
that's called responsibility.
You want to know
point,
what?
Regardless of which city you're in.
You want to hear what's not responsible? Is MLB literally just right now? This is breaking news, 8:45 Monday, July 27th. MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred says that the Marlins coronavirus outbreak is not a nightmare scenario and that protocols are adequate to keep players safe. That's what happens when money talks.
Oh, that's terrible. I know it leaked earlier that the owners meeting, it wasn't discussed about canceling anything significantly. So I knew this was kind of coming, but it's disappointing. Not that I don't want baseball.
Of course.
I just think that, they should have sequestered this tournament, like made it into a tournament, a long play tournament. And you know what? I know the players want to make money. I know they make a lot of money. And the players who don't want to make the money have taken the time off. It's their choice. They're free to exercise it. but I think that they should have stipulated and got together in one of these amazing baseball meccas in the States that have like 20 fields or whatever, and just set it up and outfitted it for cameras and just gone and played a really big baseball tournament to determine the 2020 Astros World Champions.
Yeah, because right now you are setting up a nightmare scenario where someone is going to pay the ultimate price. Anyways,
yeah,
that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk more about it. Going back to movies. So yeah, there's, at the end of the day, money is driving a lot of these business and political decisions. Let's not forget about that. But from our point of view, we don't know when things are going to be coming out. We don't know when a lot of things are going to go back to filming. So it'll be interesting to see where we end up going with that. So that's that. Now, in other movie news, this is one of my favorite subjects to talk about. Zack Snyder has announced that Justice League Snyder Cut won't use any Joss Whedon footage. Zack Snyder even said that he would blow that fucking thing up before using shots from another director.
Man, there's no bad blood there. Jeez. This Snyder Cut thing. I'm curious to see it. It's now become a spectacle. It's now...
If this
what the heck's going to happen? But like I'm hearing, and I texted you this week about Star Wars. We're going
to talk about that in just right after this, because so we're going to talk about Justice League, then we're going to talk about Suicide Squad, and then we're going to talk about Star Wars, because I just wanted to talk about this whole revolution, thanks to you fans like me and Phil, contributing to Zack Snyder getting a second chance, and someone's career like Joss Whedon is absolutely being tarnished right now, because there's just so much happening right now, and a lot of negativity on Joss Whedon, a lot of allegations coming out with how he acts on set. So there's just so much going on right now. But in regards to the actual Snyder Cut, I'm telling you, Phil, if it is not the next Citizen Kane, they're fucked.
Yeah. It's set the bar really high right now. And I think it was all done to sell subscriptions for HBO. And I just really have a doubt, but the proof is in the pudding. There's not a lot of pudding out there yet. And, we'll see what happens. I just can't see any time that you sit there and you go, well, we pulled all this stuff out of the garbage bin and we're going to restore it. We're going to put the effects on it. In no way, like Justice League already was like that with the mustache, right? There's no way that ends well for fans. Like,
well, remember, that was a Joss Whedon.
Maybe there is.
That was Joss Whedon, 100%. So we'll see. We'll see in regards to what actually happens. But just like, this is just becoming such a major thing right now. Like, not we all. A lot of people wanted the Snyder Cut. At the end of the day, trash is trash. You can't, depending on how you polish it. And I'm the biggest DC fanboy, and I didn't hate the movie, but I know that, the animated movies are so much better. So I was disappointed in the theatrical releases and what we actually got in theater. Let me put that out there. I'm not a hater whatsoever, but this is just
could have been better.
It could have been better. And this is just getting out of control right now. There's a lot of pressure on Zack Snyder, and I know that Zack Snyder, he gets a lot of negativity around him. Even when he released Watchmen and Man of Steel and things like that. But we'll see what ends up happening here. But HBO Max, they're Warner Brothers, they're going all in. They are going balls deep with Zack Snyder and the Zack Snyder Cut.
Hey, man, I'm pushing for the Lord and Miller solo.
Oh, Jesus Christ. You know what? Whatever. Let's just bring it on. Any shitty movie.
Hashtag.
Any movie that had horrible critical fan response, can get a second chance now. Let's just get it out there. What if, Phil? What if we petition Disney to do something with Star Wars? Let's talk about this what if scenario and a message that you sent me on Saturday, which has killed me.
Yeah, you know what? Like, there's there's areas in the Star Wars fandom that I've seen. I don't necessarily love them, but once in a while they get something juicy to dig into, and I happen to come across a YouTube channel. I won't mention the name, but there was a lot of speculation about the idea that there is now something that is being worked on for the Rise of Skywalker called the JJ cut or the Lucas cut. And this is originally the movie was pitched to be 4 hours long, apparently, to Kathleen Kennedy. And they came back and they said, well, that's just too long. So the next idea was to split it into two movies. And then they're like, well, that's not Star Wars. So they basically tried to dumb it down into a 2.5 hour version that felt rushed, was different pace than almost any Star Wars film. You compare that against New Hope and you're like, what the heck happened? Like, did they start taking crack cocaine? Like it just feels like everything is like off the rails, right?
It was the fastest paced Star Wars movie and one of the fastest paced movies in general. I've never, and I'm trying to think right now, when was the last time that I was like, what the fuck? Oh yeah, I remember Charlie's Angels 2000. It was that fast paced. Yes, I was able to compare Charlie's Angels to Star Wars. One of the things I've been wanting to do for a long time. But it just felt so fast paced, like 1 second, like literally the first few shots, you have Kylo Ren trying to find Palpatine. And it's like, oh, here we go. And then something else happens. And then something else happens. It's like every 5 minutes, something major happens. And it was like all these Star Wars shorts that got spliced in together, and it said, boom, here's your fucking movie. Put that in the theater.
It was like Robot Chicken, except trying to be serious. Like,
yes, that's exactly it.
Wow. Okay. And you know what? Like, you take each individual piece and you can digest it a little bit better. Man, when you're watching it on DVD or whatever and you pause it, there's like all kinds of Snokes and tanks. And like, I'm just like, the details are just way over the top, and they were so fast in the movie you didn't even realize what you were seeing on the big screen. So, shout out to home movies. But so apparently what they're doing now is putting together the full, like, they're going back to the dustbin and they're going, what did we chuck out on the floor? What did big evil Kathleen Kennedy make us throw away? And they're trying to put that together and make amends to Star Wars fans now, as rumored. All right, there's no confirmation about this, but it's following the lead of a Justice League, the Snyder Cut, and Suicide Squad. They're going, and apparently Disney are looking to at least assemble the 4-hour JJ cut and see if that maybe gets the fan base to chill out a little bit and get. Because I forget who the actor was, but there was a Doctor Who actor that was cast. All right. And he was very tight-lipped about it on the internet. And then now, apparently, this is one of the details, and then I had to shut it off. This guy apparently plays the acolyte of Palpatine. And he is the physical manifestation of Palpatine outside of Palpatine's lair. And that's apparently this big compelling story thing. And his whole role got cut. That whole storyline got cut, which is why he got a little bit pissy about it. But I guess he still got paid.
I'm very disappointed in you, Phil. Not only is it just any Doctor Who actor, it was one of the most popular doctors in the modern Doctor Who era, Matt Smith.
It wasn't David Tennant.
It was, fuck you. It was Matt Smith. So
Matt Smith, yeah.
Jesus Christ. Well, I can't wait for that Doctor Who.
Well, how forgetful is that name? Come on, Matt Smith. It's John Doe. Like, putting it out there. I was never a Doctor Who fan, so clearly, unless it's Baker, like with that big scarf, and Tennant, I'm like, that's about it. That's all I know, other than like a whole bunch of Daleks and phone booths. So, it's kind of lost on me aside from my childhood viewings.
I think we have to reevaluate our friendship right now. Oh wow! So that was. I actually had to pause the recording for a second there, folks. And yeah, I think we had some counseling. We talked it out. Everything's all right. The show will go on. But never, ever disparage a Doctor Who that way.
Oh no,
again, Phil.
It's a great fan base. It just wasn't my thing. It was way beyond me growing up, man.
I just love like you just shit talk Doctor. You didn't even shit talk. It's like how dare you not know you
an actor's
idiot.
name. Jeez, man, it's just Matt Smith. Maybe he does a brilliant job. I'm sure I'll like him. I just never watched that Doctor.
A lot of
maybe
people
I did.
Listen, a lot of people don't, and that's fine. It's just I don't know. That was on me. That was all me. That's a me.
And I know Doctor Who fans. All right, I've been to conventions. I've seen them. They're great people. They're raising money for charity. They're always in the shadow of the 501st, and it's not necessarily fair because their costumes are crazy. Like those Daleks and everything are just amazing to see in person, and to think that these things are made in people's with their own money, and they're beautiful. But where does a Dalek go pee? That's all I have to ask you.
Christ.
Just think about it.
Oh my god. I don't even know what to do right now.
Anyhow, be sure to support them. That's all I can say. You can say that Phil doesn't know who Matt Smith is, so maybe I have to go watch some Matt Smith movies. I don't know.
My concentration is like thrown for a loop right now. I'm sorry. Anyways,
I'm gonna have to Google them.
We're gonna get back to it. So Star Wars. Yeah. So like you said, there was literal full storylines that filled in the gaps that were cut from the movie. And this is why, one of the things that I've constantly seen is that in books and in comic books, a lot of questions are being answered in regards to The Last Jedi. And a lot of fans are like, well, why didn't they just add it to the movie? Why wasn't that explained in the movie? See, that's my fandom voice, by the way. So,
really complimentary. Oh.
Exactly. So, man, we are losing listeners every minute of this episode.
I know. I'm a fan. I'm in that group, so speak for me here, Boris, please.
Jesus fuck. So a lot of people were just upset with what we ended up seeing and really questioned the powers that are at Disney. Why wasn't this explained better in the movie? And I think that I wouldn't put it past, and let's get back to the fact that, as you said, this is all pure speculation and hearsay and rumor and innuendo. We don't know if any of this is true, but, this was supposed to be a larger experience, larger movie with full storylines cut from the final product. That took a lot of energy to get out there. All right.
Yeah, and you know what? If they do it, whatever. I just think that it goes down a dark path. It's not necessarily where you want to go with the stuff. What's out there is out there. It confuses the canon timelines. If you release this, and then how does that fit? What actually happened? And then you're going to see action figures, and you're going to see remarketing. You're going to see all this product. It's confusing, and So who knows if it's true? The source was spotty. His record spotty. So, I'm sure a week ago he would have had us believing that there's an all-out war of attrition going on in Disney, which I don't doubt there is. So it's a funny world we live in now. And that's the dangerous part that we keep on pointing out, is that fan bases have to be careful with these hashtags and with their demands, right? We have to be responsible about it, and maybe some things will work out, and we eat our words, but by and large, I think we're experienced enough as adults now that we know that you can't capture lightning in a bottle twice. Like, you can't keep on trying.
That's the thing about this. It's like and this is the point, that, I keep saying, I just don't use the right words to say this. I'm not trying to shit talk Zack Snyder. I'm not trying to shit talk David Ayer. I'm not trying to shit talk Justice League or Suicide Squad, but you're really going to the well, and you're hitching a huge risk on what if scenarios. What if the movie could have been better because of X, Y, Z? There's you're betting the bank on a lot, and for example, Justice League, apparently it was going to need $30 to $50 million more to complete the Snyder Cut. It's a huge investment. That's the budget of some movies in general. So, you had this movie that did iffy in the grand scheme of things, and I know that the reason why they're doing this at the end of the day is because DCEU, the extended universe, the DC cinematic universe, whatever you want to call it, relies heavily on Zack Snyder's vision of Justice League, moving into Flashpoint and things like that. So I understand where the want and the why they're wanting to do this investment, but it's tricky, and it's risky, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. It is risky. In other news, this is just quick, and I just want to get this point across that it's interesting to see that while movies are filmed and just waiting to be released, while movies like Jurassic World 3 and The Batman and The Little Mermaid and things like that are starting to get back to production, there's now more news on pre-production for movies, including release dates. And I think it's a little presumptuous to have release dates on movies, but for example, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is going to be released on April 8th, 2022. I think it's a little ballsy to even put a date to anything right now.
Yeah, it is for sure. Like, geez, man, to put that target on the backs of people. But I guess it's far enough out that they feel confident that there's going to be some kind of vaccine or some kind of herd immunity to what's going on in the world, and things will, be in a better place or where they used to be. So they feel confident. And I guess a movie like Sonic might be a little CGI intensive as far as the character is concerned, the main character. And maybe they feel confident about how that all happens and isolating people in studios. So good on them. I guess it feels a little bit sketch, but I'm more concerned about some of those other movies and just finishing up the production schedules and getting it there to the audience, right? In whatever format it is. I can see it wanting to be in the theaters, but hopefully the Trolls 2 controversy with Universal will have simmered down so AMC will like the monies of a fallen kingdom.
Exactly. So video game, we've seen comic books, every comic book known to man, comic books that we all heard of, comic books that we have never heard of, comic books that we should be hearing of are all getting movies. And I guess right now the trend is for video games. We just talked about Sonic, other video game games, I guess.
IPs.
Yes, that's the word. That are going to theaters are things like Mario, Mega Man, and Metroid. So earlier last week, Brie Larson begged Nintendo to cast her as Samus in the Metroid movie.
That would be fun. You know what though? I remember the original Mario Brothers movie.
Oh yeah, John Leguizamo, 1993. That was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life.
That was a trash heap, dumpster fire of a movie. And I'm always worried about whenever you dip into that nostalgia bag. He-Man Masters of the Universe with Dolph Lundgren, Mario, Sonic, even this last iteration. I can't even bring myself to watch it.
It's good. You should watch it. It's good.
I'll give it a shot when it comes out on Amazon or Netflix.
Matt Smith isn't in it, but you should still watch it.
From what I'm seeing, Matt Smith isn't in a lot that I would watch, but Doctor Who would be the thing that probably I would watch. So, yeah, I'm not going to go down the avenue of the Crown. No offense to those who do.
So video game IP, tons of movies. It'll be, again, this nostalgia factor. We'll see what happens, and that is something that we will be talking about in a featured episode coming soon. Is kind of that nostalgia factor, and we'll see what happens with that. But we're kind of starting to run out of time, and I want to talk about something super important right now.
Uh-oh.
And that is, I think now that it's 2-3 weeks old, we can start talking about it a little more, and we're actually going to have a special just on this IP, and that's Snowpiercer and the Snowpiercer season finale. And holy shit, I'm convinced, I am sold. Get me on that train. I want to be there. I'm all in. Can't wait for season 2.
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad you watched it. We won't do any spoilers for people, but it's certainly. I felt like it was ending in episode 9, and I'm like, well, what the heck is 10 comes on. I'm like, what the heck is going to happen in this? Other than just finishing up the little pieces of the story, and then out of the blue comes that wham bam, thank you, ma'am, ending. And it's very reminiscent. I know we talked about it briefly, but Battlestar Galactica. It kind of had that cliffhanger feel to it. Very good. It's definitely not my favorite show, but it's not my hate. I don't dislike it. I can watch it.
I'm like I said right now. Yeah, you're right. It's not my favorite. It's not a Battlestar Galactica type show for me. Battlestar Galactica was just a show that I needed to watch. Snowpiercer, I watch it for the enjoyment. It gets me away for a little bit of time. It gets me watching Jennifer Connelly for about 44 minutes or so a week, for 10 weeks, and it's good viewing for me. But no, they're kind of doing the Battlestar Galactica Lost type cliffhangers, and I'm 100% sold. And I kind of want to go in depth about this with this show, because again, when you think about it, and at the core of it, like, how many seasons can this show honestly go for? You and I talked about this and joked around about, the types of things that could happen. And some of our predictions actually did happen in this season finale, which I think is absolutely hilarious. But we'll see how long this can actually go for, and at what point the show is going to inevitably jump the shark.
I think 2 to 3 seasons.
Yep.
Honestly, it's going to start crashing out soon. Excuse the train pun, I guess. But it's just, how much compelling story. Now, that's a challenge to the writers. Maybe the writers have got some cards in their pocket, some tricks up their sleeves to compel us into further seasons. But I know that Netflix and TNT and whatnot obviously aren't going to keep this thing going forever. Netflix are notorious for cutting shows. And then if they lose that as a distribution panel at TNT, who knows how that affects the bottom line. And the cast too. It's a pretty big cast with, like we pointed out, Jennifer Connelly and all the others. They're pretty good actors, and I don't know how much time they're going to have to continue to contribute to a show if the writing loses. As we all worry about with all those shows, the one that stands out to me is Heroes. Yep. I know that went off the rails due to a writer strike, but man, oh man, was that ever ugly.
The revival was just horrendous.
Yeah, sometimes it's just good to let stuff be gone.
It's true.
And I know that's going to circle back to Justice League and the JJ cut.
Here's the thing, Phil.
My solo, Lord and Miller.
We want to do a special episode just on Snowpiercer where we can get into spoilers and talk about the movie. And for that episode, I am preparing all this gold material like this. What do you call a train carrying gum?
Oh, God.
A choo-choo train.
Oh. Dad humor. Oh, boy.
Why did the man driving the train get struck by lightning?
I don't know.
He was a good conductor.
Oh, jeez.
How do trains here?
I just don't know.
Engineers.
Engineers, I was going to say it, but I thought, no, it can't be there. Oh.
Why did the crazy guy steal a train?
Because he was loco.
He just had a locomotive.
Oh, man.
So if you want to hear more puns like that, stay tuned as we have our Snowpiercer special in a few weeks.
Yeah, I'm going to need to make notes on that Snowpiercer show because I watched it mostly just in my spare time, and I'm like, okay. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
This happened. There's a deeper level. I encourage people to watch it, especially if you like trains. Like, jeez. It's a huge segment, the train lovers.
Yep.
But I know in Lego there's a lot of train stuff, believe it or not. Like I was watching some Lego videos by Jang Bricks, and he's just like going in that apparently all the Lego stuff is cross compatible with the electric train stuff and whatnot. So it's pretty amazing just how much of that stuff, and it does look cool. So I shouldn't be too hypercritical of it. But trains.
Yep.
That'd be cool, man. A Lego Snowpiercer. Someone's got to have done it.
1,001 trains long.
Yeah, 1001. I want, whatever scale that is, I want to see that bad boy.
All right. I think we've lost all our listeners, so I think we're at a good time. We're Phil. You can tell our 2 remaining listeners how they can get a hold of us.
Well, you can go to our website at www.itscanonpodcast.com. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at It's Canon Podcast. You can email us at show@itscanonpodcast.com. And you can subscribe via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, really anywhere you use you find any of the podcasts. So if you like what you hear so far, make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. This product is only possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support, and please, leave a review. Click on that subscribe.
Not on this episode, for the love of God, not on this episode.
Hey, man, it's good to have some fun.
Exactly.
Geek therapy, you called it.
That's exactly what it is. It is geek therapy, and I hope that, like therapy, it helps you as much as it helps us. Because we are the It's Canon Podcast, where we talk about all things geek, all things comics, all things movies, all things video games, all things books, all things toys, all things everything. And you know what the best part of it all is, Phil?
I heard somewhere that it's apparently in canon.
It's all in canon. So thank you so much, everyone. We just wanted to have fun this week. Go out, watch Matt Smith, Doctor Who, watch Matt Smith, everything. And we will be back this weekend with a new episode of the It's Canon Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. He's Phil. I'm Boris. And here's a song that everyone loves more than us talking. Goodbye. And done.
Nice.